Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create ecosystems and environments where people thrive. Today's conversation I'm excited for. I am fired up, and this is going to be a conversation that transforms the way that you even think about who you are as a person, who you are as a leader, and recognizing that the things that we want, the things that we are meant to do are based upon one word: identity. And today's conversation is with the founder of Identity Dynamics. She is an expert. She's going to provide us a masterclass, a blueprint, and a guide for us to be able to understand who we are, the spaces in which we need to be, so that we can be able to create the change that we were meant to create. Dr. Stephanie Kirkland. We are back on another time because the first time, I don't know what was going on. Good to see you again.
Again as well.
So I would love to know, who are you? Like, for our listeners, for our audience, who are you and what is the story that has gotten you to be able to be the amazing leader and change maker you are today?
My name is Dr. Stephanie M. Kirkland. The name of my company is called Identity Dynamics. And the journey for me started with, I tell people all the time, just this story about burnout, really. You know, I was mother, wife, friend, sister, choir director, whatever, all of these different roles and responsibilities that were a part of my life. But then I looked up and said, this can't be it. Like, is this purpose? You know what I'm saying? Is this how I'm supposed to be showing up? Is the only way that I'm supposed to be fulfilled is by walking out roles and responsibilities for other people? And so I really had to check myself in that space because I really wasn't in a place where I felt that was right and I needed something different. And so that's where my journey began. All of this work that I do is around and began with me asking that question: who am I really? And how am I really supposed to be showing up in the fullness that makes me who I am as a unique individual? And how am I then supposed to be creating impact with that?
Can you walk me through, Dr. Kirkland, how to understand who we are? I think that's one of probably the most challenging questions that we can answer. And I think it's not even just a question that gives us an answer right now that's the answer that we'll always be able to have. I think it's continuous evolution. But how did you get to the point where you were able to fully define that first time who you were? And what would be your advice for someone listening in to do the same?
Well, in this workshop that I teach called Leveraging Your Uniqueness, we begin the conversation with what really is identity, right? Because identity is who we are. It's not the roles that we walk out. It's not the responsibilities that we have. It's what makes us unique individuals with regards to how we show up in spaces. And so the conversation begins with identity, right? So what really is identity then becomes the question so that I can really investigate who I am and how I'm showing up. First thing is beliefs. Our beliefs shape who we are and how we show up. And when we talk about beliefs, we're talking about familial beliefs, right? Religious beliefs, personal context, and what we have actually accepted to be true for us with regards to how we engage with the world. We have to add to that our value system, those things that support our beliefs. I use the example all of the time, like if you say that you're not a smoker, right? That is the belief: I am not a smoker. But now my values have to support what I say I accept to be true. So that means I'm not smoking, right? Because I said my belief is I'm not. So my value of not smoking, my value of I don't allow cigarettes in my house, I don't purchase. So the next component after that is your values. We don't even think about the trauma that's taken place in our lives. Those things that have impacted us emotionally are really shaping our habits and behaviors and what that looks like in our lives. So that's another piece of our context. Culture, right? What are the cultural aspects of us, whether we are male, female, Black, white, age? Those are cultural contexts. Systemic areas in our lives that are coming from the culture that we live in. That could be, if we're individualistic or a collectivist society, Then our personality, those things that are just us, our quirks, right? The little things that only show up because of who we are as people. So all of these things come together to form our identity, who we are. But for the majority of people, we don't do the personal development work in order to really investigate that. So then our brain takes over. I love brain stuff now. You know that, Kyle. So our brain takes over and realizes all of this information from the time we've come into the earth up until the time that we are now. And it's categorized this information inside of us that now helps us to engage with the world. And so when we don't do the work to be intentional about all of those components that make us who we are, we end up living our lives on an autopilot that is not in our intentional control. So then the trauma or the work that we didn't do or the emotional baggage or, because there's no such thing as this is just who I am. There's no such thing as that I am, this is just what you get. No, that's what you have allowed, right? Because we have this thing called neuroplasticity, which means that any given time, I can actually shift the trajectory of who I am and how I show up and what that looks like. And I have the power. But the majority of people are not in control, right? Not intentionally with regards to how they're showing up in spaces, but their patterns, the categories, how the brain is now engaging because of your lived experience is now controlling how you're showing up in spaces. And that is identity. I say this all the time. If it can be removed, it's not who you are. If it can be removed.
I don't know about this one, Dr. Kirkland. I have this conversation all the time with friends and colleagues about, can people really change? And
yes.
This is, I love what you're saying, especially, is it neuroplasticity? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you really believe that people can change? Or do you believe that people have been so conditioned to be who they are, and no matter what circumstance, no matter what environment, no matter how much their willpower wants them to do better, no matter how much dedication, there's parts of people that will truly just never change. Do you believe that? And if not, why do you believe that's a different perspective?
I don't believe that, because we are in control of who we are and how we show up. Back to the conversation of neuroplasticity. That is an actual brain function which says I am in control to what is actually a part of my synaptic connections and the myelination that takes place in my life that creates the conversation, the scripts, the narratives that are now a part of how I engage with the world. So I control that. The problem is we don't believe that we're in control of that. And it's because we don't know how to do the work necessary to change. That's the thing, right? If we know the process of change, I mean, the real process of change, I'm not talking about just, we're going to have some, emotional conversations and I know my emotions, I know your emotions so that we can engage. No, that's the power of identity work. You have the control mechanism on the inside of you to change your beliefs. Beliefs actually control the narratives of our lives. Think about this. Gandhi has this wonderful quote. He says, our beliefs become our thoughts. Our thoughts become our words. Our words become our actions. Our actions become our habits. And it is our habits that create our destiny. So if I can change my beliefs, which impact my thoughts and how I'm engaging, right? Which comes down to the activity of the habits that I'm creating with how I'm showing up, then I can actually shift the trajectory of my life. Even in the brain, I mean, it's so exciting, right? We have these synaptic connections that actually hold the imprint of our actions. And every time we continuously do something over and over again, the process is called myelination. We're actually ingraining that action. We're actually ingraining that process. We're ingraining. So the more we do it, the more ingrained it becomes. And then our brains actually say, oh, this is how you want to show up, because over 90% of our decisions are on autopilot. Think about that. We believe that we're living here, but no, our decision process has already been predetermined based on our lived experience. So when we see somebody and we go, oh, they can't change. Yes, they can. They just have to make a different decision about what they accept to be true and what and how they engage that truth in their lives with other people. So everybody can change. Every single person. I don't care if you're 80, you can turn around and be somebody different if you choose to be and do the brain-based work in order for it to come to pass.
Dr. Kirkland, this is too good for him. This is so good. You know, I think about this idea of change and why it's like a curse word where other people hear it because it's so challenging for people to truly change. Yes. And one of the questions that I wrote down that I know for a fact that someone listening to the recording or even to the live when this goes live is going to ask is, where does change begin? Because, you know, I'm a Christian man before anything, and it says in the word that do not be conformed, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And there's a lot of biblical scholars that teach it, but they're not teaching the tactics. It's not that easy to just say, one day I'm just going to start doing my morning affirmations and then my whole life's going to change. Where does change truly begin? And what is the framework, that step-by-step process that you would recommend people to actually become better based upon their words, based upon their actions, based upon those habits and destiny?
Well, I'll just use the scripture that you use, right? It said, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And what's beautiful about that scripture is further down, it says, so that you might prove what is good and acceptable and true, right? So that process is not about how someone else is engaging. We all live in our own worlds, our own paradigms. We all have to do this work. So be ye transformed. And that goes back to your question about change, right? Because the word tells us we can change if we do what? Change the way we believe what we accept to be true, right? So anybody can change if you change what it is that you're using to engage with the world. Because when we change what we're using with our language, with our conversation, and how we engage with the world responds differently because we're choosing to show up differently, right? And so that is a part of what that process is. So when we talk about process, I use what I call the identity ruler, something that I use with my clients. And the first step is insight, the I in the word identity. So first we have to slow down enough to be self-aware. Because like we said earlier, we are engaging with our subconscious mind, right? And the only way to see what's in our subconscious mind, okay, I'm going to go back to your scriptures again, is for there to be pressure in our lives, right? For us to see what it is and how it is that we engage. I always thought Paul was crazy when he says, I get excited when challenges come. I'm like, that man is crazy.
Yes. Yes.
But think about it though. He says those challenges come to what? Shift me, to change me, to bring me into a different perspective. Why? Because now I get insight as to what's going on the inside of me with regards to the challenge. I get to see myself. Oh, come on. So when we are able to actually see ourselves, we're actually now able to make a different decision. That's the self-awareness. And so I ask people these 4 questions. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Where did that come from? Do I want to keep it? And every single opportunity in your life, whatever is coming up in your imagination, since we go in scripture, let's go, right? You know, if casting down every thought, every imagination that exalts itself against what? With how I really truly want to show up. So the process is, where am I going, right? What do I want in my life? What does that look like? And I understand that I might be here in that process, but the work is in the middle, right? Covey says we begin with the end in mind. Where is it and what is it that I want? What do I want to show up in my space? This is where I currently am as it pertains to that. Now I understand the work that's necessary in the middle to get from here to here. But I have to do the work. I'll give you an example in my own life. I wanted to start working on integrity because I wanted that to be a part of my blueprint. I wanted it to be a part of how I showed up. So, you know, and people have to understand, stop looking outside of yourself for experiences to support the changes that you want to make in your life. Your life is the plan. Your life is the plan. So you have to use your own.
Can you talk a little bit more?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that perspective?
Yeah, I'll give you an example of my own life being the plan, right? So I'm at the grocery store. I love Aldi's. Everybody loves Aldi's, right? And so I'm working on integrity. That's the goal. I know I ain't there yet. So there has to be this work on the inside of that gets me to what it is that I want and how I want to live that out. I'm at Aldi's at the grocery store, and you know how they don't have the little tracks inside the parking lot for you to put your cart. You got to go all the way back to the store. Right? I didn't want to go back to the store. I wanted my cart. So I'm arguing with the cart, right? I'm looking at the store. I'm looking at the aisle next to me. I'm looking at the store like, oh my God. And then you know what I heard in my heart? Integrity. You said you wanted to work on integrity. So what does that mean? I got to take the cart back to the store. That's the work. I said what I wanted. The process is integrity means I do what I say I'm going to do, whether someone's watching me or not. My word is my bond. I have integrity. They say that's where it belongs. And I'm going to what? Honor what someone says with regards to my situation. So, but the issue was I went and took it back. I did that part, but I did it with an attitude. I was stank about it, right? I was like, I gotta take this car back to the thing because I'm working on integrity. But I had to catch myself because now on the way back to my car, I can no longer have an attitude about it because I'm the one that's doing the work. So now I have to check myself. I got to check my attitude. This is something that I want in my life. It is a belief that integrity says A, B, C, and D. So for me, if I'm going to walk in integrity, I can't be upset about walking in integrity. So I had to check my attitude and I walked back happy. I didn't leave the little cart until I had my attitude checked. And I went and got in my car and I went on about my life. That was the plan. You see what I'm saying? Your life is the plan for the work that you need to do because you're engaging with the world through who you are. What you do in one, you do in all. So now integrity is not just in my personal life. It's not just at the grocery store. It's in my business. It's in my relationships. It's in my spiritual context. It's in my physical life. You see what I'm saying? So now that blueprint that I've created now becomes a part of who I am. That's identity. It's not a mindset shift. It's not just a mindset shift. It's a decision to show up differently and it be a part of who I am. And it is who I am. Does that make sense?
Dr. Kirkland, that makes all the sense. And for somebody listening in that didn't catch all of that, because I had chills as you were talking, there's 4 questions that she asked that I wrote down. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Where did it come from? And do I want to keep that? And for anybody listening, what I heard in that is that we have to stop thinking that change and transformation and this process of redesigning who we are is challenging. It starts in the small things, like taking the cart back. It starts in the small things. If you're running late, communicating ahead of time. It starts in the small things of stop saying you're on the way when you're still putting your shoes on at the house.
Yes.
What I heard though, Dr. Kirkland, in your explanation is, I think the most challenging but most powerful question on those 4 questions is, do I want to keep that?
Yeah.
I think people often go to, you know why you did that. You know why you said that.
Yes.
You even know where it came from. But the problem, the accountability, the responsibility that is required comes in that 4th question. And asking yourself, do I want this to continue to be a part of my belief and my habits and my decisions and my identity on a day-to-day basis? Because it's that consistency that continues to show who you are. And that leads me to a question.
Sure.
What parts of your identity, do you feel are fully expressed in your leadership? And then what parts are hidden or do you feel are constrained?
You have to ask me that in a different way. What do you mean? What do you mean by what is the fullness? Ask me in a different way.
So I recognize that, and maybe you'll be able to push back on me in this. I recognize who I am at home as a dad
Okay.
is completely different than how I need to show up as a business owner, as a
Okay.
coach, as a speaker on stage. Those two people may be completely different. And it's
Okay.
not that it's a different identity, like I'm taking on completely different people, but it's different parts of that identity are fully
Mhm.
expressed in different ways. I may
Correct.
have to be much, much more empathetic and compassionate for my daughter and son
Right.
than if somebody's on the call with me complaining about something that their business isn't doing. So I
Okay.
guess in your work that you're doing, what parts of your identity are most expressed or fully expressed in how you lead companies and how you lead people?
I think it's all the same. I just think there's different levels of it. I think that, I still, even though I have empathy in a different way for my daughter, but empathy is still a part of who I am, if that makes sense, right? I'm
Just
just expressing it because I have a different responsibility to her than I have to somebody in business. So it's not that I'm different people or that I'm different for different platforms. I just might express it in one level or another based on who I'm responsible to engage with. So, my conversation around identity is that we are leveraging who we are and our uniqueness in every area. And I usually tell people there's 5: personal, professional, spiritual, relational, and physical. And when we actually put identity first, which is understanding, is one of the chapters in my book, You Are the Gift. When we understand that we're the gift and we walk in just the fullness of who we are as unique individuals, because we're doing this work to understand who we are, what we believe to be true, actually working on those truths, surrounding that with our values, dealing with our baggage, understanding the makeup of who we are and how the environment is impacted by us. And we are no longer a response, right? We can do the football analogy. I'm always on the offense. I'm never on the defense, right? I'm never
exactly,
defending
exactly.
how I show up. I'm always coming as who I'm supposed to be coming as, because that is the gift. That is the value. That is my unique value proposition, whether that's to my family or whether that's to my business. Who I am and everything that makes me who I am is necessary in both contexts. How I might deal with someone in one context or the other is just the only difference. But who I am is who I am. I'm not, I'm not coming differently. I'm not code switching. Does that make sense?
Mm,
Am I
that's good.
sensitive to what's going on around me? Yes, I'm very sensitive. I know who can handle all of me and who can't. You see what I'm saying? It's a whole different
Exactly.
conversation. And so I might temper how I show up in a different way because of the environments that I'm in, but I'm still coming as me.
Okay. I want you to coach me then, because I've
Okay.
thought in spaces in education where I was the only person of color,
Mm,
where I was the youngest in the room, that sometimes being in the room and creating a gate so that and a bridge so that others can get in the room required for me to hide pieces of myself
mm,
that normally would not be able to help me politically navigate that room in the way that I believed I needed to. Because I
okay.
always thought that coming into those spaces, I needed to play the long game, but sometimes playing the long game um, has you assimilating to a space
Mm-hmm.
and not being able to give you or empower you to truly show up and say how you feel and do what you think to best advocate for those that are underrepresented.
I hear you.
So
I
I
hear
guess
you.
my question for those people that are in spaces like me, whether they are people of color or not, they are
Right.
playing the game, whether it's that only woman in a corporate space of men, whether
Right.
it's that Black professional that is carving out their path for other Black professionals, whether that is that first generation college graduate that's
Mhm.
coming into that space. What
Right.
would be your message to them that they're trying to understand how their identity they're trying to balance their identity, their beliefs, while still navigating the complexities of where they are.
Yeah, it's not that you don't navigate the complexities of where you are. It's you making sure you don't lose yourself to become who you're not. Because if you're the gift, I need everything that makes you who you are in that space to shift the space. You're in that space because you're called to shift the space. You're called to be who you are in that space so that real change and impact can take place. I think a lot of times I'll give you an example. When I was doing my doctoral work, I asked all of these wonderful women, I made sure that I spoke to women who were older in this doctoral work, because my conversation is how do we decenter, and the conversation is prototypical leadership norms. How do we decenter those norms? And then how do we now make normal the leadership modality of African-American women? That was my conversation. And so when I was talking to these women came up where there was no DEI. They came up where there was no inclusion and belonging. So I'm like, how were you successful in these spaces with the environments the way that they were, but you're at the top of your game? And you know the number one thing every single one of them said? I know who I am, and I'm willing to deal with the consequences of it. Man, that was beast, right? I mean, I know who I am, and I'm willing to deal with the consequences of who I am, because there's consequences for being you, positive and negative, right? But for me to diminish who I am does the space a disservice, because I'm in the space because of who I am. I'm called to shift spaces. Identity is also understanding that you are an impactor. You are in the earth to create impact in the environments that you're called to. Does that mean that you show up and you just act any kind of way? No, there's a maturity to your identity. There is a way of engagement because of the maturity of understanding who you are and how you show up. You understand the opposites of what makes you great and how you show up, right? So you know the opposite of confidence is what? Insecurity. You know when you show up in a room, insecurity is in the room. But because you've mastered who you are and how you show up, now you know what? How to deal with insecure people.
Exactly.
It's not that you're no longer confident. You're just mature as to how your show up impacts spaces. And now you make decisions with regards to that, how you're going to actually engage in those environments because of that. And it's you not taking on the responsibility to change people. It's you being who you are, but now you're giving that responsibility back to those people to do something different with regards to how they're engaging with you. So it is a maturity level. It is, it's definitely a nuance to it. There's definitely a harmony with regards to how we show up in spaces, but that's still our work, right? I know when I go in this room and I'm the only Black, I'm the youngest person, I know what I'm getting ready to hit. I'm getting ready to hit ageism, right? I'm getting ready to hit, you know what you're hitting. So now what are your conversations for that?
That's good.
What are your answers to that? See, we don't do the work to master our greatness. And you got to master your greatness because you got to be. And see, that's the end result. I have to be who I am because that is why I'm in the room, right? I have to show up in all that makes me who I am because the room needs my greatness. So as a result of that and understanding who I am and how I show up and the room needing what I have to offer, we have to be okay, not just for the environment to be receptive of us, but we have to also be okay that they won't. And it's not your responsibility to make sure that they do, because that might just be the lesson for them. You hear what I'm saying? That might just be the growth that they need to do. But if I don't present myself as who I'm supposed to be, then guess what? They never grow. They never mature. They never shift. My impact and how I'm actually called to that space and why I'm in the room never gets the greatest impact it's supposed to get because of how I show up. I'll go into a room and people be like, and I'll be doing my, my talk and they're like, oh, child, you stepped on my toes. Good.
Good.
I'm glad I did, because what? That created awareness. I understand that my assignment is first to what? Break down. People need to think differently. It's going to push up against their narratives, what they've accepted to be true. I have accepted that that's part of my assignment. Do you see that? So now, as a result of that, how do I master the work of that so that I'm received one way or another? It doesn't matter, because I still am who I was supposed to be in the room. And whatever the reaction is, irregardless if it's positive or negative, I've done what I'm called to be and who I'm called to be in the room. Does that make sense?
I think what you're saying just helped me unlearn something that I grew up learning. And that thought was that just getting in the room was enough. And once you get in the room, you do whatever you have to do to stay in it. But what I realized just now, interestingly, is earlier on in my leadership journey, when I would get into these spaces and code switch and assimilate and not show up as the gift, people wouldn't change because I brought in a representative. So it never made them uncomfortable, because my then goal was to stay in the room so that I can continue to keep everyone comfortable. Right. And in the times that I was making people uncomfortable, I left those spaces when I should have stayed, because that uncomfortable tension was the only tension that would have transformed the results of that room. So I thank you for that just now.
Yeah.
My question,
because you're your greatness. You are being who you're called to be.
Interesting.
We can't be less than who we're called to be. We can't. Especially people who have a spiritual context. Yeah. Then why are you here? You're here to create impact, right? We're here to represent the greatest expression of ourselves. Us being the greatest expression of ourselves. That work is who you are, is the impactor. It's not assimilation, doesn't impact. It just makes the room comfortable. And comfort does not create change. It doesn't.
And that's where I'm understanding impact is uncomfortable. We always talk about like success, that you have to get uncomfortable you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable when you're trying to become successful. But the same thing is true with impact. If you're trying to impact something, and I even think about just anything, whether you're an athlete or anything, in anything that you try to do, growth requires pain. Growth requires struggle and some form of tension so that you can get it better. Yes. I guess my question, because I know you're a tactician when it comes to this work. In what ways could leaning into this uniqueness amplify your influence, but then also your productivity and effectiveness on the other side?
I'll give you an example as far as in an organizational leadership context, right? So I might have someone who's in middle management who's come to me, who's told me, Stephanie, I want to be in the suite. I want to go to C-suite. I no longer want to be in middle management. And the first thing I say is, you got to change who you are, because guess what? It's the truth. People who are in middle management are what? Program managers. People who are in the C-suite are strategists. They have their own way of thinking, and they're okay that nobody agrees. You see the difference? So I have to change who I am in order to impact the different room. Because if I stay the program manager, are they going to give me the promotion? No. Because where am I effective? In middle management. In middle management. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, I think that's an example of, how we have to be intentional in this process of shifting for what it is that we want based on where it is that we are, and do that work on the inside in order to do the work around our beliefs, our values, our thoughts, our processing, what works, what doesn't work. And whether that's in the C-suite or whether that's in our small business. I have entrepreneurs all the time, why aren't you networking? Well, it's just not who I am, or I'm shy, or I don't. No. You can leverage who you are in every space. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or extrovert. You can still leverage. The introvert can leverage and make just as much money as the extrovert. But because of our understanding of these dynamics and how we just lend ourselves to other people's interpretations of that, we lose it, right? For example, people don't believe it, but I'm an introvert. I am an introvert.
I don't believe that, Dr. Kirkland. I don't know. I've seen you in person. I don't know.
And it's because of maybe how you define an introvert. Because a lot of times people define an introvert as somebody who's just quiet and somebody who's reserved and shy. That's not an introvert. An introvert is a person who doesn't get their energy from people. So you need space, right? An extrovert gets their energy from people and engagement. They can talk, they can engage, they're just on in the mix, So for example, with the networking component, just the difference. Me as an introvert, when I go into a room, I have a number I'm going to talk to. I have a girlfriend who's a butterfly. She's going to talk to everybody in the room, everybody, right? That ain't my game, but I still need the impact of being the networker. So what do? I say, okay, I'm going to talk to 7 people. I'm going to engage with 7 people and then I'm out, right? That is because my energy doesn't come from the room. I have to be intentional in my engagement. So, she'll be butterflying. She done hit like 30. Right? What number you on? I said, I'm on 4. I got 3 more to go.
3 more.
3 more, and then I'm out. I'll see you later, right? Yeah. So it's the power is in me owning who I am. I didn't push it away. I'm not trying to be an extrovert. I am who I am. So now I leverage the greatness of that because introverts are what? They're heavy thinkers. They process. They're watchers. They're great listeners. They're very tactical. Right. So that gift of that I bring to the table and I make sure that I leverage who I am because it is a part of my blueprint. It is what makes me great. Right. It is a part of that. And I leverage it for where I'm going. I hope I answered the question because I went on a little tangent.
You sure did. Look, I'm just you talk to some people and you just get lost in their wisdom. And I appreciate it. And you remind me of a college professor that really opened me up to the world of entrepreneurship and business when I was in college. And I would just go into his office. I would ask one question. He would go on a tangent, but I would have a notebook full of notes. And we still have a relationship to this day because what you're doing is not just theoretical, it's tactical. I can really see the real change and the practices in what I need to implement on a day-to-day basis.
Correct.
If an organizational leader is listening in, if a corporate leader is listening in, where do they start in this journey, not just for themselves, but imparting this journey in the culture of their organization as well?
Self-awareness. And it's self-awareness and understanding what it is that you're actually bringing, right? Goes back to those 4 questions. I tell people all the time, even after my workshops, if you don't do nothing else, begin with the 4 questions. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Where did that come from? Do I want to keep that? Doing that work alone will up-level you to a place of self-awareness where you can begin to make decisions around what you believe and accept it to be true so that you can begin to deconstruct. That's the D in the ruler, right? Insight, then you can deconstruct. Then you can see what the limiting beliefs are around that concept and that understanding. Then you can make another decision about how you want to show up and what that looks like. Then there's an empowerment that happens as a result of that, right? Then you can now navigate in a different way. You navigate challenges different. You navigate, circumstances, and you see things differently because you've made a decision to show up in a different way with new context, understanding, and conversation. So the process is the same as you evolve. So how I'm telling you to ask the questions now at this level of who you are is the same questions you're going to ask when you get ready to walk into a new season. We're getting ready to go into 26. Just a whole new world, right? For me, October is January. So we're in November. So now where are you going? Exactly. What is 26 for you? Whether it's personal, professional, spiritual, relational, or physical. How do you want to show up? What is the identity? What is the embodiment of who you need to be for where it is that you're going and what that looks like, right? We all know that in order to be a millionaire, we don't do to be, we be in order because we do as a result of who we be, right? The song Doobie Doobie Doo. No, we don't do to be. We don't have to gain, right? We be. And when we be, the do comes. The habits are there. The behaviors are there. Because what we've set our mindset, going back to that scripture you used earlier, I am transforming me, right? I haven't transformed the environment. I'm transforming nobody else. Because when I am who I am, then everything has to bend in accordance to, because I understand the negative and the positive of my show up. So that work, that process, start with the 4 questions. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Where did I come from? Do I want to keep it? Because those narratives and those undercover scripts are controlling your life. They're controlling your decisions. You're not making decisions here. You're not doing that here. You've already made the decision. That's pre-scripted. I mean, really think about that. That stuff is pre-scripted. Your brain is going to be on autopilot to do. People say, is that real, Stephanie? Yes. Okay. When you learned to skate, when you was 8, can you still skate? Yeah. Learn to ride the bicycle when you was 4. Can you still ride the bicycle? Yeah. That stuff is prescribed. It's prescripted. When you're going home and you're tired and you wonder how you got home, because it's prescripted. You're not living in that moment in your conscious. You're living it based on the scripts and narratives that you've built up in your subconscious mind that you now need to be aware of so that you can shift, so that you can be who you need to be, so that the habits and behaviors that you need for your life are attached to that. It works that way. My beliefs are my thoughts. My thoughts become my words become my actions become my habits become my destiny. Why? What we said before, that myelination. The more I do it, you said it earlier, consistency. And every time you're consistent, that myelination process is wrapping around that new synaptic connection of that new way of being and engaging that you desire. It's not 21 days. 21 days is really your brain acknowledging that you want to do something different. It's your brain saying, oh, you're trying to do something different? And then that tug of war that you feel is really your brain saying, now I got to let go of what we have already created in order to add on this new way of thinking and being that you're talking about. Do you want that? And you feel the resistance, you feel the pushback, right? You feel like, I don't know about that, right? You just, it's because of a belief. Your brain is telling you there's a belief here that's going against this new information you sharing. Do you want it or don't you? And if you do, you're going to have to do something different. So that's the beauty of the methodology. Exactly. It is intentional. You can have the outcomes that you want. You just have to know what the process is and walk it out.
Dr. Kirkland, send me an invoice after this. This is, I knew this would be a masterclass, but look, I just bought this notebook, and this week I have like 8 pages of notes. So I appreciate you so much. And I think what you said is so powerful, because we have this thought of like, it's like riding a bike, where I've learned how to ride a bike and I can just get on a bike and do it, even though I haven't done it in a while. Or swimming, like when I get in the pool, I know how to swim. And we only attach that concept with physical actions.
Yes.
It's the same exact thing with mentalities and mindset and beliefs. But just because we're not actively doing it with our eyes to see it, we are still actively thinking it. You learned how to lie when you were a kid, and it wasn't checked, and you never really sat down and thought like, hey, I want to be honest. I want to be integral and committed to doing the work. Yes. That's what I wrote down. I said, it's the same exact thing with mentality versus actions, but we always look at the action versus the mindset that is actually moving and the catalyst to the action. My question though, why change is hard. We understand.
Yes. That. Period.
And we have this mindset or this perspective that, all right, 21 days of doing something, you're just going to be a newfound person. You're just going to redesign and be this person forever. That's not true. How long does it take, though, Dr. Kirkland? If I commit to this work, if I commit to these beliefs, if I put the right systems in place, create the right environment, what do we see? Is it a 3-month, 6-month, 2-year? Where do we see that shift begin to start happening and that rewiring of our brain?
If it's intentional, 21 days is usually around your brain acknowledging that you're wanting to do something different. If you ever like follow people who have programs and processes that are for 21 days and they're like, do it, do the next day, because you're literally shifting, and your brain is actually coming into concert with regards to something that you want different. It's actually creating. I mean, think about it. This is brain work. This is not just you confessing something.
Yeah.
You're actually reprogramming your actual neuro connections, your brain. You're actually reprogramming yourself. I mean, that's so powerful.
It is.
Look at it like that, man. It's like, oh, I'm reprogramming. I mean, it gives you a whole different attitude around the process and the journey. So 21 days, I know I'm consistent. My brain is acknowledging that I'm doing something different. Around 60 days, I think they say 60, 66, the new habit actually comes into formation, and you can actually see yourself and you can actually hear inside of yourself. For example, like going to the gym. My husband is a great example of this. And I was like, just 21 days, babe, just get to the 60. And when he got to around the 60, he was like, oh my gosh, my body woke me up and said, it's Tuesday.
Oh, let's go to the gym.
It's Thursday. He was like, I actually hear my body telling me it's Tuesday. It's Thursday. Because you've rewired that synaptic connection. And now the beautiful the consistency creates the myelination. It's actually like insulating the new process. And when you actually can see it in your head, like, wow, every time I do this, I'm wrapping that thing tighter. I'm making it stronger. And it makes it stronger and stronger and stronger till around 90. It actually becomes a part of who you are and how you show up. And it moves into that kind of unconscious realm where you do it because it's a part of who you are. So all of my journals are around 90 days where we focus on certain concepts, because the more you myelinate that thing, you just turn it, you move it, you're asking those questions, you're self-aware, you're investigating why something is a part of your journey. What do you want? Do you want to keep it? So what's the new information? Going back to what you said around affirmations, the word says it, affirm. So that means what? Affirmations are not to convince me to do something. Affirmations are confirming what I've already accepted to be true. So if it's an affirmation, you already have to believe it. And all that is that myelination, right? Every time you look at it, every time you turn it, every time you speak it, you're just making that new connection, stronger and stronger, to the point, which is the beauty of the brain. It now has to release the old connection in order to build the new one. Isn't that beautiful? Like, it actually destroys the old one to make space for the new one. So your consistency and your habit around it is actually creating a new narrative that now is wired into your brain, and it becomes a part of who you are and how you show up. It's beautiful.
I need somebody to commit to the 66 days, and I'm going to be the first to commit to it, because after this conversation, I'm going to really ask myself those 4 questions. Like, why am I doing these things? Why am I saying these things? Where are these things coming from? And do I want to keep that? And the things that I recognize that I no longer want to keep, it's time for me to rewrite and redesign my thought process.
Yes.
So I'm asking anybody listening, are you willing to walk on this journey with me as we redesign, redevelop, so that we can be able to enhance the spaces that we come into, so that we can become the gift and remember that on a day-to-day basis? Dr. Kirkland, do you have tools, books, resources that can help people that are on this journey, that are starting this work, or that are leading in spaces? What tools can we have, or can you share with us that can help us on this journey?
Well, I have my book, which is called Identity. You can order it off of Amazon, and it's 12 lessons that actually support us in unapologetically owning our uniqueness in a world that won't see it as normal, is the title of the book. I have it here. It looks like this. So you can order it. And the lessons are so powerful. The first lesson is the room is crooked. Off the bat. Once you learn that lesson and you engage that with regards to your show up, the room is already crooked. And I talk about the psychological study that was done, that the actual psychologists actually tilted the room. And when they tilted the room, they began to put people in the room to see if they stayed in their own alignment or if they aligned with the room. Oh, that's just a whole different conversation. It's a whole different conversation. But those who know who they were, they acknowledged that the room was crooked, but they stayed up. But the majority of the people, they aligned, they assimilated to the room. You know what I'm saying? So we talk about that acknowledgement. When you really get that and you grab hold, this room is crooked. How am I supposed to be in this space? And what is the impact that I'm supposed to make here? When you stop allowing the room to control your show up, oh, it's a different game, right? So those are some of the lessons, like embrace your story. It begins with you, not them. Who do you need to become? Break the silence, overcoming self-imposed limits, creating boundaries, leading your impact. So those is 12 lessons that really help you begin this conversation. And then I have what I call identity shapers, which are journals that people can use with regards to the 4 questions. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Do I want to keep that? And it's in different areas of your life, whether it's self-awareness, if it's belief in values, harmonizing your life. I was trying to see if I had one. But these different books, every single day, you're actually working on a different context, right? You're actually paying attention to a statement. Like, for example, I'll give you one. It says, to move forward in life, it is essential to know what you want and what you need to let go of. This creates space for new opportunities and experiences that are aligned with your desired path. Remember, getting clear about your goals is the first step in achieving them. So I'm now supporting you in actually doing the work to actually shift your dynamics mentally. And this book is around life harmony, healthy relationships, and overcoming challenges. So for 90 days, I'm helping you reshape your thinking around these conversations so that you can make different decisions about them as you investigate your own beliefs around the concept. So those are the things that I have. And I have, of course, I do programs. I do executive coaching. I have a program called Woman Behind the Vision for female leaders who are called to impact kingdom. They're called to impact globally, culturally, or systemically. So I do all of this work that I really love to do, but it's all about identity. And how do we begin to work on ourselves? Because it is us that is the gift.
One of the questions that I wanted to know, and I wish you wouldn't even have started reading the 12 lessons, because now it's a whole nother conversation for another time. We definitely got to run this back. What is the lesson that speaks to you the most out of the 12? What's the one that is like, ooh, that one I needed the most?
You are the gift.
Yeah.
You're the gift, because so many times we hold on to other people's vision of who we are based on our grooming, whether it's parents, life, religion, and we never own who we are. We never do the work and allow those things to be supporters of what we have decided and who we've decided to be and how we've decided to show up and what that looks like for us. You are the gift, not the environment, not what you do for a living. That's nothing but a conduit.
That's good.
So when you understand that you are the gift and you have a message that your life is called to speak, and no matter what avenue, like whether it's in business, whether it's personal with your family, I have a message that the people who are in my space need to hear me speak. When we understand that the gift is us and we are called to impact, it changes everything. It changes everything.
Let me ask you this question. When did you realize, Dr. Kirkland, that you were the gift? What did it take, and when did you realize it?
I realized it when I gave myself permission to be okay not staying the same. When I found myself not being fulfilled, and I knew that the life that I was living was really centered around roles and responsibilities, but I did not know who I was. I did not understand the impact that I really had. The only thing I knew is that if I did these particular things, people would be happy. So I knew what the moms did, right? Because my mama taught me that. I knew what the wife was because the church taught me that. I knew what the entrepreneur was because I went to the program, right? But it was still just a conduit. It was still just avenues. But I was and am the gift that impacts those things. Those things aren't supposed to control me. I'm supposed to impact those things. So for example, as a mom, yes, I have responsibilities, for my boys to take them to school, but that's not my purpose in their life. My purpose in my children's life is not to take them to school. My purpose and the reason why they're in my life is because who I am actually impacts their destiny. And my responsibility is to be the greatest expression of myself so that who I am actually helps and shapes and molds who they are, because they have an assignment in the earth that my gift is supposed to impact. You see, it's a whole different game. It's a whole different game. So I must know who I am. I don't have a choice, because it is the determining factor of the impact that I'm called to make in the earth. I have to know my message. I have to know why I'm here, because I am the gift, not what I do.
Dr. Kirkland, where can we find you? How can we continue to support you and continue to lift you up and you remembering that you are the gift?
You can reach me. I'm on LinkedIn under Dr. Stephanie Kirkland. I'm on Facebook, Stephanie Kirkland. I am on Instagram, Dr. Stephanie Kirkland. You can reach me at events. I'm always doing events, especially in the Southeast and around the area with regards to that. I mean, that's how you can reach me, identitydynamics.net. I am doing a program in December, 4 sessions I'm doing in December for people who want to kind of transition and reset. And it's called the Identity Reset Experience. So if you're interested in that, you can connect with me for the month. I'm actually doing all of the sessions. We're going to be doing them on Wednesday. So if you're ready to reset and walk differently as you walk into 26, connect with me and enjoying that experience. I would love to be a part of your journey.
Dr. Kirkland, count me in, send me the link, and then I'll also put it in the show notes. I am in. You have told me. I am in. Look, anybody listening, thank you so much for still being with us on another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. Dr. Kirkland, you are such a light, such a gift for me as well in my journey. And this moment has been one that I will never forget. And I appreciate how you've shown up, how you've challenged my own perspective, have helped me unpack and unlearn some of the various things that I've carried and have provided me a path and a roadmap for me to be better in myself. But then also how that will be a catalyst to being better as a father, as a Christian, as a business owner, and as the man that I'm called to be. Anybody listening, one of the questions that I always ask on the Contagious Culture Podcast is, what type of culture am I spreading? The culture is in you, and the energy you bring is the culture you create.
Yes.
Another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast with Dr. Stephanie Kirkland. I'm your host, Kyle King. And make your culture worth spreading. We'll see you next episode.
Blessing.